I have provided for you some surveys. There are surveys from, I know you can't see that, Ashtabula Lakeside High School, and there's actually a high school survey and a staff survey, and I would urge you to look at the staff survey. I think I mentioned that to a table and maybe mentioned it to you all how important it is to collect data on stress and support and other issues for teachers as well. So there are two example surveys for you to consider if you're interested in especially the staff thing. Bucyrus High School, Granville High School, there are two Granville versions. What I usually do when I do survey stuff is sit down with constructs that might make some sense for people and actually tailor a survey for the context, for the interest of the school, kinds of things that they're seeing. I think Brandy mentioned that our survey there over the last 4 or 5 years has actually changed a little bit given what they're seeing in students and the kind of things they're measuring. So those are some example surveys. You also have another document right there. It says Risk and Protective Factors Measurement Scales. This is a compilation. I think there are about 30 scales. I think that they're all public domain. All of these surveys are completely available to you. These are public domain measures and scales that you can use from various sources. We've tried to make sure we don't get locked into proprietary or permission-based scales. So we were judicious in making sure they were free. So you can use anything, modify it any way you want. I did forget to do two things, and if you're interested, I'll give you, if any of you want contact information, I'd be happy to provide it for you. I forgot to put in consent form examples. Almost always you're going to have to go through a consent process, active or passive, whichever your policies prescribe. And if you do active consent, you're going to want to do the survey a little differently than if you have passive consent. And actually, there's some things about active consent that are challenging when it comes to surveying students, so as you might expect. So I'd be happy to send those to you. I've also included a PowerPoint that's the format I typically use when I analyze survey data and pull it together. I almost always, my reports are typically PowerPoints. And what I like to try to do with that is take it to meetings with partners. And actually, I think I said this before, put it up on the wall and say, hey, this is what our students are saying. Let's start thinking about what we're going to do about it. So it's worked pretty well. And it's a shell. Actually, there's some real table and real data, but it's a shell in case you're interested in seeing how you might present information that usually sparks some interesting dialogue. So there's that. And here you have this morning's PowerPoint that we did in case you're interested in doing a presentation in your own districts or communities about the topic of the day. You might make a few modifications to it depending on your context, but it's readily available for you to use however you want, if that's helpful. And we also have worksheets. Where's Vicki? Is she still around? She's gone. Some of the worksheets you used today are on there. You can actually take a look at that. This is the presentation here, so good. I added a handful of articles in. There's actually a monograph on plan change. I think I was beating that to death this morning, but I want to do it again. If the work that we are talking about today represents a new idea and innovation for your context, or if you're struggling with getting this kind of moving forward, think about conducting a readiness assessment and trying to deal with concerns It's just, it pays off hugely to try to get people on board. As you know, people who are resistors in the adoption process can actually be problems for you, and you probably have dealt with that some. So the Edelman and Taylor diffusion model is quite good. It talks about a plan change process in education and actually deals pretty much with the material that we talked about today. So if you're going to read that one. This monograph, the NIDA research monograph, it's about 300 some pages, is a nice summary of knowledge utilization literature, which is another sort of framework for plan change, and provides some suggestions about how you can think about strategies for implementing change. And there are some other things you can kind of browse through them. In education, I don't have it here, but you should know this, that I mentioned it earlier, CBAM, concerns-based something system, I can't actually ever remember it, but Hord and Hall and Hord, I think they're listed in that direction, have a book out. It's a second edition on CBAM, and so if you're working in education, you might want to consider picking that up. It's actually quite good.